my name is Nora Hwani binti Rukan Rohaizam, number metric 277280. So, what is mean by social influence? Social influence is the way in which individuals adapt their behavior to meet the needs of the social context is referred to as social influence. Social influence is usually the result of particular action, order, or request, but people's attitudes and behavior can also be influenced by what they believe others are doing or thinking. Next is three types of social influence. First, we have identification. Second, internalization. And third, compliance. What is identification? Identification, on the other hand, is accepting our external influence on a particular group or giving an individual opinion for a particular reason. Occurs when a person influences someone who is respected and liked, for example, such a famous celebrity. Second is internalization. Internalization is when people openly and privately agree with a concept or behavior they are said to have accepted, meaning we accept all the provision content in the group, internalization, and not because we feel the member is the same as us, identification. Next is compliance. Compliance is a social influence that will cause a person to change attitude or behavior to comply with the social norms practiced. Here, social norms mean rules that must be followed in the particular situation, meaning a person seems to agree with others but maintains views that are contrary to their own. Why this happens is because they do not want to go against the flow of the situation. Next is there are two psychological needs to meet the expectation of others. First is normative social influence. Second is informational social influence. So, what is meant by normative social influence? It is the influence of adapting oneself to the positive expectation of others. For example, an individual will show behavior in specific way or certain way to make others individuals like him. Next is social influence. So what is mean by the social informal influence? It is when a person change his behavior to be right. There are situations where we don't know the right response. An individual always look at another individual who is better and higher in knowledge and take it as a guide for the individual's own behavior. For example, in a class, a student agree with other students who are smarter than him.
Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Nur Nadia Nasar binti Yahya and my metric number is 279151. Okay, about social influence take two basic form. Social influence describe how our true feeling and behavior respond to our social world, including our tendency to adapt to order following social rule and obeying people in power. Social influence take two basic forms, namely implicit expectation and explicit expectation. Implicit expectation are compliant and social rule, while explicit expectation are compliant and translate to be an obedient. Implicit expectation are those where there are unspoken rules, such as unwritten laws involving secondary school and a vague expectation that has been enforced by the norm of a group. An explicit expectation is an expectation that is clearly and normally stated. There are two things related to this explicit expectation. The first is compliance, that's compliant or obedient. Compliant is a form of compliant and behave in response to direct or indirect requests. Acceptance of social influence. There are several reasons that has caused most people to accept this social influence. This is said so because each person allow social influence to influence themselves in terms of their thought and behavior on the basis of adhering to the norm that has been stated by a group that is the cultural pattern that for making each such individual acceptance in that environment. Group compliance can also encourage collaboration of all when trying to achieve common goals. Then, when a person is also able trying to influence a minority over a wider group, he or she is able to nurture that group to work more effectively and collectively. Lack of criticism can have a negative impact on group performance due to the ability to evaluate one on behavior and also adapt to constraint and changing symptoms. Furthermore, compliance enable a sense of unity in society. Law prohibiting violence can help protect every individual in a community. However, those laws also depend on people adhering to the norm of the broader group by acting as citizens who abide by every law the government has made.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Hanis binti Muhammad Hashim and my metric number is 27902. I will explain about three main behavior of social influence. First is conformity. Conformity is giving into perceived group pressure by imitating the behavior and belief of others. Conformity occurs when a person wants to change his or her own attitudes or behavior to meet social norm. In addition, there are also those who want to change behavior due to a person's desire to follow one belief or standard from another. Conformity also can be defined as an action that can align a person's attitudes, belief, and behavior with certain groups such as normative group and like-minded groups such as political. There are several factors that can influence conformity. The first factor is that situational factor affects conformity. Situational factor influencing conformity, which is a group size consistency, increase as a group size increase. In addition, group cohesion and relate topics, groups that have a strong sense of togetherness and discuss important topics, increase coherence and social support. Social support reduces creativity by reducing the normative influence of the groups. In addition, people often also adapt to a desire for a safety in groups. The aspect that usually exists in this conformity is having the same religion. Next is one of the theory that discuss personal factors influence conformity. First is a theory of psychological reactions. In this theory, people believe that they have their own freedom to participate in independent behavior. Yet there are also those who feel themselves, and sometimes there are also some who feel that they are unable to do something. Thus, a threat to the freedom to act to do something will exist in a person. There are two types of threat, which is internal and external. Internal threats are threats that occur due to themselves, where a person does not choose a particular action. In addition, there are external threats that occur where several factors that cause external threats arise. Such factors include institutional factors or impersonal, pose a challenge to an individual's freedom or from the direction of a social influence that direct a particular individual. There are several examples of threats to the freedom to act to do something. For example, people are persuaded to buy a certain item at the grocery store. In addition, some threats exist when they are forced to pay tuition fees, banned from using cell phone in school, and instructed to do certain tasks. Next is theory of a minority influence. A minority is a more influential division than a minority of more than one. This is because one person will be more inclined to be consistent over a certain period of time, especially over a long period of time. Furthermore, minorities will not divide for the majority share of attention. They also find that by stating that someone would probably ask themselves, for example, they ask themselves that they are so wrong and too confident. This will have an impact by allowing the emergence of a tendency to reevaluate all situations as a whole. They perform a variety of ways and actions to assess all such situations by selecting and considering all possible alternatives that exist, including opinions from minorities. On the other hand, two people will be more likely to be influential than one person because they tend to be seen as something strange or known as eccentric. Research made in this more recent theory has supported the latter due to the inherent belief that minorities with two or more, if consistent, have more credibility. Therefore, they will be more likely to influence the majority.
Compliance can be expressed in relation to the act of responding well to explicit or implicit requests that has been offered by order. It can be illustrated here that obedience is a change in behavior but not necessarily a person's attitude in complying with obedience alone but choosing to withhold personal truth due to social pressure. Compliance involves a person implementing a set of rules as well as recommended behavior. Compliance is also a special type of compliance that occurs as a result of instruction from the authority. Obedience is a form of social influence that involves action under the order of one authority, and it is something different from obedience which involves behavior at the request of others. Obedience, on the other hand, involves a change of behavior that empowers us because of a figure who strengthened it. Compliance experiment by Milgram. Based on the classic study experiment that described is related to the Milgram study, which has involved participants in a room and instruct them to deliver an electric shock to students present in another room. The participant asked to participate in this linear study was a teacher. They had given an electric shock to the student. Then the voltage was increasing, but the students started protesting and wanting to give a reply. The protesting participants were told to continue it a while.
Social impact theory. This theory of social impact was developed by Bibb Layton in 1981. According to the psychologists, social impact is defined as the influence on individual feelings. There are three factors that have led to an increase in person probability of responding to social influence. First is strength. Strength is the number of all people that makes a person influential, and the stable factor that need to be linked to the interest of the group that has influenced each individual. In addition, this physical or absent takes into account how recently the event occurred or is where a condition affecting the individual during probation involve other intervening factors. Next is related to the number of the people in each group, or more known as the number of resources available involved.